Hello, AC Oven Loaf Pro here. I would like to first say this video and the ones that follow will not be the same as the ones I made 3 years ago. I am much better organized and scripting now. I feel this is not a topic talked about or discussed enough. There are many videos showing what a seizure looks like. However, most of these videos do not go into details on the effects on the person or the risks that come along with having epilepsy. I myself suffer with epilepsy. I know how it feels to go through this every day and the toll it takes on our bodies. I want to help others as best as I can. This will be a series of videos discussing the different types of epilepsy and the different types of seizures. This episode will be a basic video overviewing the types of epilepsy, and I will share my own personal experience with epilepsy and seizures. I will start by saying there are at least 20 types of epilepsy and at least 40 types of seizures that are known. There are two main categories of epilepsy types. There's basic epilepsy, which can hit you any time in life, and epilepsy that's typically found in children. However, just because an epilepsy type is stated as being epilepsy in children doesn't mean it only affects children. If some type of epilepsy is diagnosed in childhood, you will not magically be free of it in adulthood. Yes, some types of epilepsy you can grow out of, but others just change. The basic epilepsies that I know about are temporal lobe epilepsy, frontal lobe epilepsy, parietal lobe epilepsy, occipital lobe epilepsy, primary generalized epilepsy, symptomatic generalized epilepsy, idiopathic partial epilepsy, progressive myoclonic epilepsy in children is febrile seizures, infantile spasms, benign Rolandic epilepsy, benign occipital epilepsy, hypothalamic hematoma and epilepsy, juvenile myoclonic epilepsy, childhood absence epilepsy, Lennox-Gastaut syndrome, mitochondrial disorders, Landau-Kleffner syndrome, Rasmussen syndrome, and there's another syndrome that I will also be covering called Rett syndrome, which is not an epilepsy, but it affects mainly girls who are autistic with seizures. Epilepsy can be caused by many things. It can be something you are born with. It can be caused by diseases such as spinal meningitis that leave scars on the brain. It can be caused by brain injury or trauma, and genetics also play a role, of course. There can be a lot of causes, and I will give more details in a later video. There is also many things that epileptics and even non-epileptics who have seizures can try to control the epilepsy or seizures. There's medications such as Keppra and Trileptal, and I know there's many others that I probably don't even know all the names for. There's also surgeries that if you're a candidate for you can get, such as the VNS, temporal lobe resection, or a temporal lobectomy, or frontal or surgeries that you can get to try to help control them. There's also, of course, the rescue medications that many people with epilepsy are on, such as Ativan and phenobarbital, but I know there's also many others of those. Of course, these all have side effects, which to some is worse than the epilepsy itself, depending on the person. But for some people, medication works great, and for others, the surgery works great. But that will also be covered in a later video. Some other things that will also be discussed are stigmas, which I'm sure many of you know the stigmas that follow around epilepsy, but I would like to cover them a little bit better, and the possible link between autism and epilepsy. Now, for my story. I was born October 12, 1992, to my mother Sonia and my father Mike. Obviously, I don't remember much from when I was a baby. No one does. But I got a good feel from home videos. I was a very sick baby, from what I understand from what my mom's told me and some of the videos I saw. My mom says I was diagnosed with spinal meningitis, and my dad says no, that wasn't the case, and obviously I don't know because I don't remember. I also blocked out a lot of my childhood. I was abused by my stepdad, but I don't want to remember that, so I just took it upon myself to block it out. I was diagnosed with ADHD at 10, and I was put on Ritalin, which my mom actually ended up taking me off of Ritalin when I was about 11, because while I was on it, I didn't want to eat, and I pretty much turned into a zombie. You know, just going through the motions every day. Didn't really have much enthusiasm for anything, really. But 8 years later, when I was 19, was when I was diagnosed with epilepsy. And my neurologist, who I had at the time, who actually I still really like, his name was Dr. Hamoudi, said that he believes it was a misdiagnosis and that I was actually having absence seizures. Which I'm sure you're all thinking, how on earth are absence seizures misdiagnosed to be ADHD? Well, I live in Iowa, and 95% of our doctors are complete idiots. And the psychiatrists and psychologists are even worse here. But when I was actually diagnosed with epilepsy, was because I started having grand mal seizures. And, you know, started out just out of nowhere. I didn't have any reason that I knew of to start having them, and I didn't know much about what was going on, so I just played it off as stress of, you know, being an adult and just all that kind of stuff, even though my boyfriend at the time was pretty freaked out about it, but I'm stubborn, so he couldn't get me to go to the doctor. I got pregnant with my first daughter a few months after I turned 19. The seizures actually ended up getting worse, but I just kept kind of playing it off like, oh, it's just because I'm pregnant. I also started having myoclonic jerks at that time too, which, you know, like I said, I just played them off. But after I had a severe grand mal seizure at one of my friend's dorms, and he had to call the ambulance, and I was stuck in the ER overnight, and my doctor I had was a complete jerk about it, I decided to get checked by a neurologist. In June was when I was officially diagnosed with epilepsy, and I was put on Keppra, 500 milligrams twice a day, and Ativan when I needed it. So, you know, I started taking those, and they got a little bit better, but being pregnant didn't help personally with me. With the seizures that made them worse, which isn't the case for everybody. It just depends on the person and depends on the pregnancy too. Then I had to get a new neurologist who was a little bit closer, and I think it is a complete nut job, quite frankly. But he goes back and forth and says, oh, you have epilepsy, oh no, you don't have epilepsy. And even after I've been in the hospital for going status 3 times, he just tries to say, oh, it's just anxiety, which I've actually been checked for, and I don't really have, like, not severe. I mean, I have a little bit of anxiety that, you know, normal people do, but, you know, he doesn't want me on the medicine. He thinks it's doing more harm than good. So I'm currently trying to get back with my neurologist. Now that I have insurance again, I'm going to try to get back with him and hopefully get better control over them, which mine aren't too bad now. I have them at night mostly, so I guess I technically would have nocturnal epilepsy. And of course I still have to do my own research. So, but I'm hoping that they'll be better controlled soon, and since I know that my seizures are mostly at night, I'm going to go try to get my license and all that, which, as many people with epilepsy know, you can't drive if you have seizures, but I haven't actually been in the hospital for them for over a year, so, you know, and that's life. And honestly, for anyone out there who has epilepsy and who just thinks that, oh, this is the worst thing that could possibly happen to me, it's not. There's a lot worse things that could happen to you. And you can do pretty much anything. I mean, within reason, obviously. You can't go and get into mixed martial arts or something like that, obviously, but you can still, you know, work if yours are fairly well controlled, or even if they're not fairly well controlled, but you have a really good boss. And I mean, eventually, if you get controlled, you can drive again. So I really want other people who have epilepsy to know that it's not a reason to give up on life as well. I mean, you can still be a parent, you can still do what you want to do pretty much. But that is my first video, and I actually have it already set out of what things I'm going to be discussing together, just to kind of make it so it's not like 60 different videos. So there'll probably still be quite a few videos. And I hope that this will be helpful and that you guys will be interested in to see more of my videos. Thanks!